Okay, we're moving on to the next project. So we're going to rebuild the front end here. I've already done the one side, the passenger side. Now I'm moving on to the driver's side. So I'll film that for you. I put in new keys, new lift keys for the torsion bars. So there we are, we're all apart now. So I'm replacing the upper ball joint, the lower ball joint, the sway bar end link, and the tie rod end. I'm putting in new shocks. I don't know if you can see the shocks here, how they're leaking. So if your shocks are wet like that, they're done. The oil's leaking out of them. Also, when I put in my upper ball joint and this control arm here, I'm going to be taking out the Ford factory Camber Shims. That's what these are here. So these are the Ford factory ones. You would replace these for different camber adjustments. And I'm going to be installing these aftermarket ones. So these are 2-degree aftermarket. You install them just basically like that in where the bolt goes. And you can see that it's got a spot for your 3/8 ratchet there. And you can crank them one way or the other, however you want, more camber, positive camber or negative camber. So if you're going to be cranking your keys, or if you're going to be, replacing the keys, maybe for some lift keys, make sure you put in these new Camber Shims, and most likely adjust them as far out as you can. What happens when you crank your keys is, I don't know if you can see here on this, but as this drops, it pulls the top of your wheel in, because it just doesn't have as far of a reach. So it's pulling your wheel in, and so you need to compensate by sliding these cambers out. So that's got to come out because these are dropping down, and that'll make it so. Otherwise, what you'll do is you'll get a real funny tire wear. The inside of your tires will wear. And so that fixes that. What I'll do is, in the description, is I will tag the different spots. So let's say you're doing an end link. You can just jump to that part in the video, or a tie rod end, or ball joint, lower ball joint, upper ball joint. Maybe you're just doing the camber shims because you want to do an alignment after you. So lower ball joint first. So you can see I just knocked the grease fitting out of it. And what I'm going to do out of my kit over here, my ball joint press kit, is I found a ring that will fit over top of the ball joint. So this is going to be pushing against the control arm. So that's pushing against the control arm. And then I've got my little step thing here. And then this is going to go right over top of the ball joint, and it's going to fit right in there. You can see it fits right tight. And then what I do is you take your ball joint press, and it goes right over top of that. And then I just tighten it in by hand first, and then we'll get the impact on it. So you see what's happening here. So this top part here, and this ring, and this ring, it's pushing against the control arm. So that's holding it tight on the control arm. And then the press here, it's going to be pushing down on the ball joint. And hopefully it'll just push it right into that cup. You might want to plug your ears, it's going to be a little bit loud. I've got my new ball joint, right? My new ball joint, and I find a ring now because I want to press this up into here, and there's a snap ring right here, so I got to push it up past that line. So I want to push on the ball joint itself right here. I don't want to put any pressure on the pin, but right on the body of it. So this ring fits right over it. You can see it fits perfectly. And then again, there's this piece here, fits in nice and tight, and that's going to go just up and in here. And then what I use is there's this piece, it's a hollow cap, and that just goes right on top here. Okay, so that's it set up. So got it all set up here, and I'm just gonna slowly suck it in with my impact. So I just wanted to check to make sure it's going in straight. Don't want it to go in crooked or get bound up on this cap. So it looks good. It's going in nice and straight. Nothing's hitting it. So we'll just keep going in. There you can hear the difference. Once it bottoms out, you can hear the difference in the sound. So you know that it's bottomed out. So there you go. You can see, can't really see, it's kind of dark, but it's all the way in. It's in flush in here. It's all the way up through. So I've got a new snap ring to go in there. That's it. Snap rings on. Now I'm going to just put my grease fitting in. And I'd like to try and line the grease fitting in, because you know that your your knuckle is going to be going right here. So if you can kind of get it, I like pointing it backwards so it's not all filling full of dirt. And then also off to the side, just pointing in a little bit so I can get my grease gun in there. Right like that. So that's it. Bottom ball joint's done. Let's move on to the top ball joint now and the camber shims. Right up here. So this is fairly easy. These things just prise right out. So here's my new control arm, and with the upper ball joint already in. What I like to do is I like to put anti-seize in here, because if you ever want to do your camber adjustments later on, even, you don't want it all seized up. So I put anti-seize in here, I put anti-seize on the bolts. I use a lot of anti-seize. So that's what I'm going to do now. Just going to hit on the metal part of the bushing. Just going to slide it back a bit here. So now I've got the camber shim here. I'm going to just take it apart. Put one of these washers on this side. Okay, so then the bolt goes through like this. Don't ever put the bolt like this, because after trying to get, like, yeah, it'll go together nice now because everything's loose, but once you try and get your impact in here when it's all rusty and stuff, forget it. You'll end up just having to cut this thing out of there. So if you just put it in like that, then even later on, once it's all rusty, you'll be able to get it right out. So it'll take a little bit of maneuvering. You got to move your fuel line, kind of slide it up in there, and then slide it in. Then this goes on this side. The washer. It's got lots of anti-seize on it. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold this side here, because if you spin this bolt, if you spin the bolt, it's going to try and spin the shims, and then what will happen is it'll strip right out of these shims. So right now, when you move the bolt, see how the shim moves too? So you need to hold the bolt from spinning and just tighten up the nut. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so we'll just adjust these so that they're out. So your ratchet just fits right in there. And then you can just crank them one way or the other, giving you your caster and your camber. So I'm just going to bring this one so it is all the way out, right there. And this one, same thing. Okay, let's move on to our axle seal. This is going to be a little bit harder to film, but you can see I just put a rag in it once I pulled the CV shaft out because I didn't want to get any garbage in there. But I'll just pull that out. You can see it's been leaking for a long time. It's just wet everywhere all around it. Looks like it might have got hit by something here, squished in. But this is just a dust seal on the end anyways. The real seal is right inside there. So we'll put a new seal in it here. So how I get these out is I just take a small little chisel. I just come on down at the bottom here, and I just chisel it in, up and out, up and out. Just before I take it out, I want to make sure that I've got the right one. So this is the seal they gave me. So it looks right. don't know if you can see this, maybe if I get you a little closer. And see how there's a little bit of glue on the inside? So that's the stuff you got to get off. That glue, a little bit here. On the outside it's not too bad because this is just the mating surface, but inside, in here, that's what'll bind up the seal as you're pushing it in. It'll like cock over one way or the other, and then you'll bend your seal and it'll leak. So if you get that glue right off there completely, all the way around, inside nice and clean, outside just scraped off so it'll be flush. Back in here. Okay, so you can see now there's no more glue on the inside. So now the seal will seal right to the aluminum rather than getting stuck up on that glue. So when you're putting in seals in here, get yourself a decent quality seal. This is a Timken. You don't want to be doing this all the time. It's kind of a pain. And what you can tell is the difference is, you know, the cheap seals like that one that I pulled out, this was just glue here, but this is rubber. And it's got nice rubber lips. It seals up nice right in there, nice and tight. Those other ones with the glue, they go in crooked, they get all bound up. Okay, so now before I put this seal in, what I do is I'll pack all around here where it's got this little garter spring. I'll pack it all around here just full of grease. Just keeps that spring from popping out. And then what I'll do is I'll just put a nice clean cloth underneath this, because usually what I do anyways is 1 or 2 times it's going to drop, and you don't want it to just drop right into the dirt. Now to install these, you want to find something that'll go right on the end of this metal. So whether you have a socket that is that size, so here we go, I found a socket that'll fit over it. Oh, better clean that thing off. Okay, so the socket and the seal just fits right over there, nice and tight. So that way what I can do is I can put an extension on here and pound on my extension. Not great for the extensions, but makes this process a lot easier. Otherwise you're balancing all sorts of things. See that the socket just holds it from falling off. So I'll just get it started as straight as I can get it, and then we'll just tap it in. Hear the difference there? Whew, that was not easy. And I'll just put a rag in there for now, just while I'm doing the other stuff. There we go. I think while I'm here too, I'm just going to crack loose my drain plug, my fill plug, and I'll just try and suck some of this fluid out of here. Let's continue with rebuilding our front end. So we're going to put my sway bar end link in here. So to do that, it goes bolt, then a cap, it goes in there, and then it's got a rubber bushing. You can see this part goes to that little metal cap, that part goes into the eye of the sway bar, so like that. Then that whole unit goes down in here, but now there's a tube that goes on it. Well, no, we got to put the bushing on the other side. So bushing, another metal cap, and the tube, then another metal cap, and another bushing, and then that whole works goes in here. That. Then we have our next bushing, goes on the bottom, cap, and then our nut. Tighten those up. Tie rod. It's already broke loose the nut, just backed it in a little bit. So what we'll do, get the new tie rod. Just compare it roughly, see if roughly it's the same length. It's very close. So I'm just going to leave it almost the same. We'll let them fix it up when they do the alignment, but it'll be close enough to get over to the shop. Really doesn't seem like it's on there far enough. I'm not too sure about this. I don't know why it'd be so short. So it's all greasable. You notice my lower ball joint, my upper ball joint, my tie rod end, the other side's the same. If you do your own oil changes, if you're underneath your vehicle a lot, I'd highly recommend getting it greasable. If you don't do your own oil changes though, if you're not under there, don't get it greasable. It'll just let the water in unless you're on it all the time. Just get it sealed. Here's our two knuckles. You can see the difference, how this bolt's much closer to the hub than that bolt over there. There's also a difference with the way that the ball joint is. I don't know if you can see that, but the angle, this one's much steeper. This one's almost flat for an angle. And this opening's about 1/8 of an inch less than this one. So overall, it actually, this one here is about 1/2 an inch higher from the ball joint to where the axle is. So that's why it would give me alignment problems too, having that one on, and brake problems, all sorts of things. So this will fix that up hopefully. So things are coming along pretty good. I just wanted to mention something as I was putting on the rotor and then the caliper bracket here. So these caliper brackets, they've got a little shim that goes on here. But what happens is in behind here, the rust builds up, it pushes this out, and then it jams up, and then you'll get uneven pad wear. So what I like to do is I'll take my little wire wheel and I'll clean this all out really good, and then I put a nice thin layer of anti-seize on here and a nice thin layer on the back, and then I also put a nice thin layer on this side before I stick that on. And then of course in the slides, caliper grease, I already did that, but I'm just gonna, that's what you're gonna see now. I'm gonna clean this out, clean these out, and then put a little thin layer in there, snap that in there, and it'll stop the rust from building up and then causing your pads to unevenly wear. Okay, that's it, all done. So everything's new in there, all ready to go to the alignment shop. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next project.